we are bombarded every day with news of catastrophes and tragedies of the world. And yes, they are true, and yes, they are important. But as much as we need reality checks, we also need to look up from time to time and realize that there is more goodness out there than we are aware of. And as an idealist, I believe there is in the heart of every person a desire to be good, to want to do good. So what would happen if in our interactions, this assumption, some mutual understanding and empathy is our starting point? It's been 2 long years since we first received news about this novel coronavirus. And I remember thinking that this was a unique opportunity for humankind to show that we can rise above our differences and together overcome great challenges. And in some ways, we were right. World leaders, medical experts, governments, companies, organizations came together in an unprecedented effort to quickly develop vaccines and medicines that would help us beat this virus. It has been a revelation to discover how much progress we can actually make in such a short amount of time if we pool our resources and work together. To me, at least, this offers a glimmer of hope for the future. At the same time, we all know that the pandemic has brought forth doubts, fears, distrust that has long been brewing underneath the surface. It provided us with yet another framework for division, yet another reason to distrust and fear one another. And the consequences have been fatal. Almost 1 million deaths in the US alone, 5.7 million deaths worldwide until now. The world is grieving. And you would think at such a time as this, we would remember our calm and vulnerable humanity. If one person suffers, we all suffer. If one country suffers, the whole world suffers. This is one of the most painstakingly clear lessons that we've learned or should have learned from the pandemic. With this virus that spills over national borders and does not discriminate based on race, religion, political views, or any other of our constructed categories. So sadly, at a time when we needed to rally together more than ever, there is rising distrust and even hatred towards each other, political leaders, experts, rather than listening to the scientific community for answers on how to navigate this medical crisis. We've chosen to listen to literally anyone else. Populist politicians, talk show hosts, YouTubers, podcasters, and other influencers with no relevant expertise or credibility. Distrust in authorities is nothing new. A healthy level of skepticism is good for democracy, but healthy skepticism is not the same as flat out refusing to accept facts or creating wild theories about the intentions of those in power, theories that are impossible to verify or disprove, or purposefully spreading lies and rumors and gossip as if they were facts. And while conspiracy theories have always been part of our societies, the pandemic has popularized them to such an extent that they pose a very real threat to our communities, our countries, and our world. Let's not forget that it was conspiracy theories that enabled horrific tragedies, such as the Holocaust, to happen. I fear that we have abandoned facts and reasons for lies and manipulation. And I suspect both sides of this divide agree with me, but for very different reasons. So to answer your question, Tiamir, I believe some of the potentially long-lasting negative consequences of this pandemic include an implosion or weakening of democracy. And there are 3 main reasons why I say this. The first one is a reduced trust in politics leads to reduced participation in democratic processes, and hate speech and extreme hate towards politicians deter good people from getting involved in politics, which again leads to more distrust towards politicians. And it leaves room for populist authoritarian leaders to gain ground because it's easier to sell a simple story that is incomplete and therefore false than a complex story that is true when people's attention span has been reduced to slogans and incredible headlines. The second thing I think we'll be seeing is the geopolitical switch from a somewhat stable unipolar world to a less stable multipolar world, with shifting alliances and expansion of economic trade, with countries who disregard democracy and human rights. We don't need to go into examples. We can talk about it later if we have time. Social media combined with pandemic-induced isolation has forced us all into various echo chambers, limiting our ability to communicate and understand different perspectives and nuances. It's a good word, nuance. I think we should use it more. So it's pushed us all to the extremes. It has long been clear that this is how the social media algorithm works. And unless something major happens, I don't think this trend is going to end, even if the pandemic ends. So the social divisions is the last point on my list of a major trend that's going to continue, I think, way beyond this time. I think the conflict lines that have sprung out from this pandemic are here to stay. And the reason why I say this is because people have really hurt each other. People have died. There's resentment and bitterness lingering, and some wounds go very, very deep. And as we've created safe bubbles of interaction, our priorities have been revealed for the whole world to see. Similarly, our morality has been tested and compared. Did you follow the safety measures, or did you abandon them for the sake of your freedom or comfort? Do you believe in sacrificing yourself for the common good, or would you rather put yourself first? Do you believe that our leaders are generally good and trustworthy, or generally bad and not to be trusted? These are loaded questions. These are triggering questions, but they are questions that we judge each other by all the time. Even if the pandemic is over tomorrow, how do we move beyond these realizations and the judgments that have been made? Because it's not just differences of opinion. It goes so much deeper than that. This is about values, character, morality, principles. This is about who we are, not just what we do. And so I think the result is going to be we're going to interact with those we disagree with even less than we do now. And the less we interact with those we disagree with, the less we will get our own ideas and opinions tested, tried, and refined. Truth will become more and more elusive to all of us. And the echo chambers we got stuck in on social media will reverberate throughout our physical realities. And to what end? Parallel societies, segregation, civil war. I was listening to a podcast recently, and Anne Applebaum, the Pulitzer Prize winning historian and author, she said, "I don't believe in the inevitability of history." What she meant by this is that she doesn't believe that whatever happens, happens, and we're in no position to change or direct our destiny. Democracy will only fail if we allow it to. But it will fail if we allow it to. Just because democracy is in our past does not ensure that it will be in our future. Democracy, like anything valuable, is costly and requires something from us. I have a small hope, because it seems like many of us on both sides care enough to fight for our democratic rights and freedoms. But it's the how we fight that is different, based on our different ideas of where or what or who the threat is. For some, it's fighting against the threat of a big state taking away our freedoms, and the public health crisis is just an excuse for this. For others, it's fighting against populist leaders who abuse their power and undermine democratic institutions for the sake of their own personal gain. So the disagreements about what the real threat to our democracy is sometimes look insurmountable. But at the end of the day, we can at least agree that there is a threat and that we need to do something to prevent our democracy from crumbling. And that's a start. I'm not suggesting we compromise on our principles, or God forbid that we compromise on truth. I don't recommend we all go on YouTube now and watch influencers spewing half lies and misinformation just because we want to enlighten ourselves to the other side. But if you're my friend, And if we believe we're both genuinely seeking truth and goodness in this world, I believe we should be able to talk without having to avoid every topic related to anything that's happening in the world, because that's how it's become. Because no matter how polarized we are or how polarized the media make us look, we still have common values. We still have common goals, common dreams, some common good somewhere. And if we're able to overcome the deep hurt and the pain that we've caused each other over these last 2 years, we can also make an effort to believe the best about each other despite our differences. And no matter how hard it is, I know it's right, because Jesus said, do to others what you want them to do to you. And this is a word of action, not passivity. And I know we can do it because he told us to. And in him, all things are possible.